Hey everybody, Brad Decater with the Decater Home Team. This is your new real estate market update for King County in the month of April. Alright, so let's jump right in. We have some statistics and there's a lot going on in the market right now, so I know a lot of you have questions, so I'm going to try and get through the statistics first, the regular market update, and then address some of the questions that I've been getting a lot lately regarding interest rates, crashing, what's going to happen with prices, all those things. So just stay tuned until the end to find out my full analysis. Alright, so first up in the month of April, as far as new listings go, we are up 3.5% from March. So just a little bit more inventory. We actually typically see a little bit more inventory than that, so it's not a crazy number at all. If you look at the statistic of new listings compared to last April in 2021, we're actually down 6.5%, which is interesting because a lot of people have been saying, hey, there's more inventory coming out. And that kind of feels that way the last few weeks, but these stats are, of course, from about 10 days ago still, so of the month of April. So when comparing to last year, we're still actually down a little bit, so still a very, very low inventory environment. I'm going to jump ahead to the next stat, which is usually down a little bit lower. This is going to be months of inventory. So right now, months of inventory, we have just 0.7 months. That means that if no more houses came for sale at all in the market, and the same buyer demand was there, we would be out of houses to sell in 0.7 months, about 3 weeks. That statistic has been around 0.5, it's been as low as 0.3 and below 1 for actually a couple of years. Last April, we were at 0.6, so very similar amount of inventory as far as months of inventory between last year and this year. All right, so now pending houses in the month of April, we were actually at down 2.5% from the month before March. And when you look at the statistics from 2021, we're down about 11%, so much bigger. So it does appear statistically, in the month of April at least, we are getting a little bit less pending sales than we did the month before, than last year. But again, we did have a little bit more inventory, new listings come to the market last year at the same time, so not too much of an issue. I do think things, we'll get to it at the end, but things have definitely slowed down a little bit. But these stats are from new listings that month of April, and even things have changed since then. All right, so sold properties, we are up 5.7% from the month before. Again, as always, sold statistics are really a lag measure because it takes 30 days for houses in most cases to close, except for some cash deals. So we're actually, sold is actually, it went pending the month before, so it makes sense that it's actually more, even though we had less pendings. So last year in 2021, as far as sold properties go in the month of April, we actually have 10% less this month than we did about a year ago. Not super surprising because we did have, like I said, less new listings that came to the market, also less pendings, so that makes sense that it's less sales as well. All right, so everyone's favorite statistic here is going to be average price point or median price. They're both looked at differently, and I kind of gather them together. So we are up 4% appreciation from month over month, so that's March to April. And when you look at it from last year, average price point is up about 20%. Median was like 16.5, so call it 18, 19% appreciation from just 1 year ago to today, this month. The last stat that I have here is kind of an interesting one. This is price per square foot, and it has actually gone down a little bit. So from its peak here a couple months ago, we're down about 3.5% month over month. The average price per square foot right now is $564. That's of course all of King County, so everyone that watches these videos knows, Sammamish, Issaquah is probably different than Kent and Auburn, right? So that's the whole King County, all of it, $564, down 3.5% from the month before. So we are seeing a little decline in price per square foot as a whole. But when you compare that to 2021, it was around $500, so still a significant increase from about a year ago as far as price per square foot goes. All right, so that's all the stats that I have for you to kind of give you the regular rundown of market update numbers. Now let's get into some questions and what is actually going on in the market other than just the statistics here. So number one, interest rates obviously have gone up significantly and very, very, very quickly. So the Fed made their last announcement last week, if you're watching this in current time, and so they did do a federal fund rate hike of 0.5, which was very, very widely predicted. So that was kind of, they just did what they said they were going to do. So no real surprises there. Of course, that always impacts the bond market and mortgages as well. But mortgage rates in general have been going up super fast since the beginning of this year. And so a lot of people predicted that we wouldn't get into the fives until the end of the year. the mortgage interest rates are kind of baking into the market what they think the Fed's going to be doing. And so they are actually over 5 currently, somewhere in the low to mid 5s right now of interest rates for 30-year fixed mortgages. So that is a huge impact on the market. I know we list houses and also we help buyers, but going from, let's say, 4% to, let's say, 5.5% is a massive difference for your purchasing power. So it's a big deal for buyers. They might be paying $1,000 more to their mortgage payment with getting the same house in just the next, in the last 3 months, for example. And at the same time, the house price has actually gone up. So like I've been telling buyers for quite some time now, interest rates are slated to go up. And I was thinking before that prices probably would not go down as a reflection of that. So normally they have an inverse relationship. So as mortgages go up, prices tend to come down. In this case, I didn't really see that happening unless it gets to the extreme, which it actually is getting pretty close. But so far that has stand to be true. So prices are going up and mortgages are going up. There are some buyers that are just getting flat out knocked out of the market. So a lot of the first time home buyers, lower price points, they are having to exit the market because they just can't afford the property that they thought they could afford just a few months ago because of the mortgage rates. However, the real estate market, I think, is still in pretty decent shape. We still have lots of activity and houses are still selling, but things are definitely changing. So we've listed, I think, 6 properties in the last 7 weeks. So we know each week what's been going on. And I feel like every single one has been getting a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse. Lucky for us, we do a great job marketing and everything else, and we've actually sold all of them or got them into contract. They're not all sold yet, closed. But we've noticed the showing activity or the amount of offers kind of changing, and we treat all of our listings the same. And so we do think that's an indication of the market changing. So I would say in the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks specifically, we've been seeing significantly less showings, definitely less offers, and less aggressive buyers because they have to pay these crazy interest rates. It's really affecting their purchasing power, and they're just thinking twice about making this big, huge financial decision and potentially maybe backtracking on their price a little bit because they can't afford that monthly payment. So what do I think is going to happen as a result of interest rates and all this stuff going on? Well, that's a really tough question. Do I see an actual market crash coming up this year? Absolutely not. I do not see that. I don't see it in the next couple years, probably even for the 4 or 5 year horizon, a real crash like we had in 08, for example. We could see a little bit of a dip in prices, in appreciation, based on what's going on, because I do think that the interest rates are going too high too fast. I'm all for getting rid of inflation and putting a taper on that by increasing the Fed's rate, because I think that's necessary. So I'm all for that. But mortgage rates have gone up pretty darn fast, and it's just hard to swallow. We're still in a historical, decent interest rate environment. 5% over the history is not that bad. But when you had a buyer shopping in November for 3.5 or 4, then it's really hard to swallow. So those people are just kind of discouraged. And so I think it's happening a little bit too fast. So I am curious to see what happens over the course of the next year. I think the interest rates will have a big impact on basically what my predictions are. So it's hard to say what's going to happen. If I had to give you a guess, what I would predict is that we do see a significant slowdown compared to the craziest that I think it's ever been. I would say January, February, March, crazy market. We've already seen a definite slowdown in the last few weeks for sure. I think that trend is going to continue through summer as we definitely see more inventory in June and July, which is typical. Every year we have more inventory in the summertime anyway. So as that's going to happen, we might even get a little bit more than that because you might have some homeowners that are looking to cash out because of these crazy prices. So with interest rates up, a little bit less buyer demand and more inventory, we should see a slowdown. Now, I don't think that means that it's going to go just like this. I don't really think that at all. I think we'll kind of flatline and houses will take a little bit longer to sell. You might get one offer, you might take 2 or 3 weeks to sell it. That's not the case yet, but that's what I'm predicting for a little bit later in the year. So prepare for more of a normalized market. But by the way, guys, this is a good thing. I've been hearing every buyer complain to me for forever about how crazy the market is and how hard it is to get a house. So now your wish probably is going to come true and you can actually get a house. Now I get it. Now it's still tough because now your mortgage payment is going to be higher with the interest rates. But that's the balance of things. For sellers, it's still a good time to sell right now. Absolutely. I would still sell. The rest of this year is going to be fine, I think. But it will be a little bit harder as we kind of get into the heat of summer. Another thing to mention when it comes to the real estate market, just so that you guys are aware, I've done videos on this before, but there's lots of factors. Interest rates are really just one piece of the puzzle. And so as they go up, yes, that impacts the market, but what about the other things that I've talked about for months and months? The housing shortage, the lack of inventory just in general, not just resale, but new construction, buildings getting hard, it's getting very expensive. There's more families coming to, and bigger families now than there ever has been before. Our biggest sector of home buyers now is going to be millennial buyers. So 32 is the average age of a home buyer right now. And that puts us right smack dab in the middle of the millennial population. They want to be homeowners. They're financially savvy, the ones that are going to be buying houses. And so I think that the main demand driver with that cohort is going to continue. So I think over the next 4 or 5 or 6 years, we are going to still have decent buyer demand. Pending interest rates getting to like crazy 8 or 10, that could obviously impact, and it will impact things. But in general, people want to be homeowners. I know my parents bought a house when it was like 15%. So people always need to buy and sell. I think there's still going to be decent demand for the years to come. And so we'll see kind of how interest rates go. And then also keep in mind, let's just say that we get into a recession, which I do think is likely. Just a regular recession, meaning that there's 2 consecutive negative GDPs in 2 quarters. And so that's what a recession is. The chances that we hit a recession this year or next year are pretty likely. So I think we will do that. But just because we're in a recession doesn't mean it's a housing bubble or crisis or housing recession. The last recession was a housing crisis, and that's what happened. But three of the last 4 recessions didn't really impact housing more than a few percent. So just because we go into recession and there's other factors, jobs and all that stuff, doesn't mean that housing is going to go down. It's still a supply and demand issue. And I think that the basics still make sense in our area, specifically with all these tech jobs. The demand is going to be decent and the inventory is still going to be low. Keep in mind for the inventory, picture that you're a person who has a 2.7 interest rate on your home, which most people do because most refinance when it was sub 3. If their lender called them and said, hey, you're at 5, now you should refinance. Most people did. And so this is not going to help the inventory factor. A lot of people are going to stay put longer in their houses than they would previously, because if you're at a 2.7% interest rate right now and you bought it for a lot cheaper than it's worth, it might be a pretty tough decision for you to sell that and then get into a 6% interest rate, or right now 5.5%, let's say, but it could get worse. So I think as interest rates go up, it'll actually feed the low inventory problem we have even more, because a lot of people won't want to get out of that interest rate and get into a much, much higher one and pay more for the house. So that's gonna significantly change their mortgage payment. This one might be at $2,000, this one might be at like $5,000. So it's a huge game changer for them. So I think people might stay put longer, which of course means we will still have an inventory problem. And real estate is always supply and demand. So if we have buyer demand from the millennials and obviously everyone else who's buying, which I think we will, and interest rates don't get way out of control, we'll still have that part. But the inventory part, it's probably still going to be pretty low. I do not see a mad rush. Everyone's going to sell here in the next few years. So, and that's what you need, is that to reverse. And so now we have all this inventory and no buyer demand. That's when the market changes and does this. So I don't see that. So prediction-wise, very tough to predict, but I do think we're going to see a very significant change from what it has been. What that change will be, hopefully, I want it just to be kind of flat. And I do think it will be fairly flat. We might go down a little bit, potentially. If you're a homeowner, don't worry about that. We've gotten tons of appreciation, like 30-40% in the last few years. So you're still doing good if it goes down 5%. But things will be a little bit slower in general, a little bit harder to sell the house. It'll be a little easier to buy though. So I don't know, I'm rambling on. Hopefully this video is helpful. This is just kind of what I'm thinking about. Very hard to predict what's going to be happening right now, but overview, I don't see a significant real estate crash this or next year where it just goes like this fast. I don't see that. Pending interest rates going to 10 in like 4 months, that could potentially impact things pretty significantly like that. Overall, don't see a crash. I think we're going to see kind of a flat line. Things are just going to slow down a little bit. And so hopefully this helps you out. And of course, I'm here for you guys if you want to talk about your specific situation. What the market's doing is always dependent on kind of your personal preferences. So people who are downsizing, selling their house that's worth a ton of money that they have tons of equity in to then buy something smaller to retire in, that's a different conversation than someone who's doing a move-up buy where they're going to sell this house, buy a bigger house because their family's growing. That's different than first-time home buyers. And so my predictions and the way I advise on the market and what's going on is very dependent on what's going on with you in your life. Since we can't predict the market, all we can do is look at the stats and do the best job we can to figure out what's going to be best for you. But I think in the end, it's always good to buy real estate if you're going to be holding it for a long time. So even if you're a first-time home buyer right now and you're scared, I get it, but it's still a good time to buy. I'm going to probably buy another house this year. It'll be an investment, but not a owner-occupied. But I believe in the long term of real estate, and if you're buying for the right reasons, which is the long-term appreciation, debt pay down, if you're getting rental income, and then tax deductions, then it's still a good thing. So reach out if you have questions, guys. Thanks for watching.